This is a disaster. It is a disaster in waiting. Because when citizens cannot afford or access basic needs, then they are pushed to the wall. And when people are pushed to the wall, they react.
OXFAM in Nigeria unveiled its latest report at the Yaradua Center in Abuja, highlighting the growing inequality crisis in Nigeria and providing key recommendations for addressing the wealth gap. The report, titled Income and Wealth Inequality in Nigeria, Trends and Drivers, and Taxing the Rich, emphasizes the need for progressive taxation and increased social investment.
The richest Nigerian could spend 1 million naira on a daily basis for the next 42 years without exhausting their wealth. Oxfam exposes a staggering wealth gap in Nigeria in 2 comprehensive studies and urges the adoption of progressive wealth taxation and increased social investment to bridge the growing economic and social divide before a social bomb explodes. The economic situation in Nigeria is critical, with millions struggling to make ends meet as prices rise faster than wages, leaving many hungry and desperate. Over 133 million people, about 7 in 10, are facing hunger, and women and girls disproportionately affected, making up nearly 63% of the hungry population.
As we gather here today, we are reminded that Nigeria, Africa's largest economy, is still grappling with extreme poverty, with over half of its population struggling to make ends meet. Meanwhile, a smaller elite continue to accumulate wealth, ostensible tax evasion, and avoidance. We have also seen how multinational flagrantly refuse to pay the taxes that they should be paying.
Key panelists at the report launch made comments on the findings of the report.
Inequalities are rising everywhere in West Africa and in Africa, unfortunately, including in Nigeria. But when we see the budget spent on social services, on basic rights of women, children, and the most vulnerable people, it's even more alarming. If you see that the government invests 5 to 7% of its budget to allow people in need, vulnerable people, to enjoy their rights to education, to enjoy their rights to health, and to enjoy their rights to social protection. It's quite alarming.
Inequality in Nigeria has been deeply historical, but we know that over the last 40 years, the kind of economic policies that we have designed as a country since the introduction of structural adjustment program in 1986 to the subsequent reforms, including the current one that we are going through as a country, are deliberate designs that favors the rich and the powerful, and that continues to impoverish the poor.
In a community in Bauchi State, I met a young girl who had dropped out of school. And I asked her why. And she said her family could not afford 3,000 naira. And the report stated that families and households in a day cannot afford $2. Now that 3,000 naira is needed for a term. That is for 3 months. But her family cannot afford it. That is 1 child out of many. And that is 1 state out of 36. I think that if we don't act, it will burn all of us. Both you sitting on that side and me on this side. Because a poor and hungry person cannot differentiate between who is in government and who is Oxfam, CISLAC, or Connected Development.
Oxfam's report comes amidst the ongoing economic hardship in the country. The organization's recommendations aim to bridge the widening wealth gap between the rich and the poor.